How's it going? Today we're going to be learning how to draw Invader Zim using basic shapes. Now sometimes you can look at a drawing like this and it could seem complex and scary, but by breaking it down into squares, rectangles, circles, it'll make it a lot less scary and show you what you're capable of as an artist. And all you're going to need is a sheet of printer paper, any writing utensil. I'm going to be using a pencil. You can use a mechanical pencil or even a pen if you want. Of course, that's going to be making erasing difficult. We're going to be erasing a lot, so just um, just because we need to make construction lines and we got to figure out the location of certain things in this image. And then pencil sharpener, of course. Don't forget this. You can always. I always like this cheap one. It's very good for me. I just find it a lot easier than like a mechanical sharpener. They just kind of eat them away, in my opinion. So you should probably be seeing it on the screen somewhere. The image we're going to be drawing. And before we do anything, I'm going to figure out the placement of his feet, the body, and head. Just because, you know what, I actually did this before in portrait view, but now we're in landscape. So now you have to kind of think about the negative spaces. And this will help, basically, if you don't do this beforehand, you might draw his body, and then you get to the part, you get to part with the head and it goes on top over the page. Or you might get to his feet and it goes under the page. So this is just a way we're just going to figure out his placement. This is probably not going to be perfect. This is just a kind of a estimate of where everything's going to be. And I actually might want to draw a line a little bit higher. This is going to be where his torso is going to be. It's going to be in this middle portion. Actually, maybe a little bit here. Kind of just feeling this out, honestly. Sometimes you just have to feel things out like this. So this is just how we're going to break down his body. And I'm just saying, like, maybe his arms are going to be up like this. I'm just paying attention to negative space. That's one thing I kind of learned later on, is to pay attention to negative space just so that you know where things are. So I'm just like marking out the space between his arms like going out crazy. He's laughing maniacally. He's got a good plan up his sleeve. Invader Zim. All his plans are always so fun. I love those earlier episodes. And one reason I chose chose this as a tutorial is that you could see the shapes very well. You could see the triangles. You could see the I was going to say squares. Mostly triangles and circles, honestly. It's not really that scary of an image now that I'm thinking about it. And I'm just going to draw his body first. So I'm just drawing a little triangle like this. It's just going to come around. And I would draw this kind of light, just because we're just getting a kind of a feel for where everything is. Some of these lines are probably going to be erased. I'm just kind of getting a feel of the detail. It's sort of like a triangle, not so much like a triangle straight on. It's sort of like a triangle that's kind of curved like this. Kind of like that. This is not going to be a one for one. There might be some differences here and there from my image to the image on screen. And that's the beauty of reference drawing is that you kind of just try things out and you see where you can make improvements and you just repeat the process. So I'm breaking his face down a little bit more. So there's like a little bit of a triangle where his the bottom of his mouth is. And I'm just going to draw something a little bit like this. It's kind of like this triangle that kind of intrudes up, and his face here is sort of like a square. So if you can think of it as a little bit like this. I was actually planning on doing an Enter the Florpus style. Um, when I was doing this. But the thing about the Enter the Florpus is his um, it's a little bit more curved than the original style. And one thing about the original style, at least I heard that the animators had trouble animating it, but for me as a as someone who loves to draw, this was definitely a good starting point just because it was just very simple to break down. You can even break this down even further. You can kind of do this. I remember when I first drew this, I kind of drew these kind of like squares or something like this. These lines like this, just getting a little bit of it's like a deformed triangle in a way, or a deformed pyramid shape. So there's his thing. We're gonna add some more detail. There's his face. We're just gonna add a little bit more detail later. For now, I'm gonna draw his eyes. Actually, I think this is a good time to draw his eyes. And oh man, I really miscalculated on some of these locations because his eyes is kind of falling off the paper. That's just one reason why it's good to space it out like this. And of course, his eye on the left is shut, but this is just construction lines. We're eventually going to draw the skin under the eye, and I actually talked about that in my eye tutorial. And let's just draw his feet and arms before we get started on the details. Just going to draw like these over here. Might be a little higher. Always make these adjustments when you're doing reference drawings. Just like, look at the image and say what you can do. So one thing about his feet are they're very triangle like. So you want to try to make him like this, shaped like this triangle, and then his feet are also kind of like triangles. Just think of like two triangles kind of connected to each other, and the point of one kind of goes into this in the other. And then his foot is kind of like a triangle like this. This is actually a very simple style because it's honestly just triangles and circles. I don't even think there's any squares in this image. I mean, maybe the top of his head is sort of like a square. But other than that, I don't see any others. If you could see, if you can see them, you can let me know. And just like this is like a little bit of a bent triangle. You can see that his feet kind of come around like this, and it kind of comes around like that. Just make sure you have the little bit of a bent there. It's just still it's like they take the shape and they warp it slightly. Okay, and there's his feet, and let's just draw his arms. So one thing is he does have some sleeves, and his or sleeves or shoulder. I don't know what they're called. They're like these like things that connect his body to his shoulder. Or these kind of like these triangle things. And then these are sort of like squares or cylinders. You kind of go up like this. And then this is kind of like a triangle, and it comes down like this. And then think of his hand as sort of like a square, honestly. This is like a square, comes around like this, and then there's a square connected to it. So you can probably see it like this. Kind of like a square, two squares kind of like meeting each other like this. And then the second arm, it comes up like this. Just think of it as like a long, elongated rectangle. Just gonna erase this real quick. I'm so sorry if the erasing is getting to some people. I'm just this is like my first ever character reference control tutorial, and I'm just trying to get my groove on. Hopefully, you guys learned something from this. I'm sure you can learn anything from any video, even like how not to do a video. And then we just get the square, and then it's just a square like this. I've noticed when I do these tutorials that usually when I'm doing it by myself, I'm really looking at these details and I can really do it. Maybe it's just the nerves of being on camera. I always found it's always kind of weird when you're on camera. I feel like I'm not myself, or my intelligence level just goes down a little bit. So these are his arms and legs, and then let's just add his backpack before we forget. It's actually a little bit smaller on his side. It's a little bit like this. And if this is, if you can make this more detailed to the actual image, I challenge you to take this and from there look at the mistakes or maybe the shortcomings in this image. Because every reference drawing has this kind of uniqueness to it because you're the one who drew it. And it might not be true for this one because you're just following along on this tutorial. But when you start doing it yourself and just trying to see these shapes, then you could see the uniqueness in your own drawing and seeing where you can make adjustments there. And it might even be, you might have some happy accidents where you find some things that like align with your art style or align with a sort of, you kind of create your own kind of style, which is something I'm trying to do right now. Huh. You know what? I'm just gonna make a small change onto this arm. You see how it kind of comes down like this? I'm just gonna put it up like this, just because I see that this arm's a little bit closer to the collar, and the collar is sort of like a triangle, if I forgot to mention. And you just kind of draw it like this. It comes around, and since these are just the construction lines, we might make some changes to the to uh, some of the the thickness to his arms and like maybe like the thinness or like different warped shapes of certain things. So I'm just lightly erasing the construction lines just so I can put the detail on top. And you just slightly erase just so that you can see these lines yourself. You don't have to erase as much as I'm erasing. Hopefully this is coming up on the camera. I'm really hoping this tutorial video comes out as well as I think it's going to come out. Alright, and now let's start adding some detail. So I'm going to probably start with the body like we did with the construction lines. We're just going to draw this. It's going to come out like this and down like this. And adding a little bit of a curve just so that it's kind of in line with the picture. And then I'm just going to draw his little tie here. I don't know what you call this, like sleeve. It's triangles, sort of like his sleeve. And then it kind of curves up like this, and then we have the neck ties coming up like this. And he has 3 of these like little like curved lines. You could think of this, as like little tiny curves. Just kind of curve it like this. It's not like completely straight, it's a little bent. And then we'll get to the feet. Drawing this, maybe drawing it a little bit more or less big, because I see his feet being a little bit more stubby than how I drew it. And then, make these micro adjustments in your reference drawings. Don't be afraid to do so. Don't make everything set in stone. That's one way you kind of make yourself miserable and you're like, I just started drawing this and now it doesn't look right. You always have that opportunity to make these minor adjustments. And even if it doesn't turn out perfectly, from your shortcomings, take take those as a learning opportunity. I think a lot of times when people are artists or when they're doing something new and they don't reach the goal that they want to reach, that they usually get discouraged. And I think that's kind of a bad way of looking at things. Don't look at things as failures. Look at failures as opportunities to succeed. Look at failures as learning experiences. And from there, you're not going to get as upset with certain things. I think it might be more difficult, like if you're like an artist and you're taking a class and you have to get grades for that. Um, sometimes that can get a little tense because I think that grades kind of make you have certain expectations of yourself, and if you don't meet those expectations, then you're a failure. And you kind of have to break out of that, and you kind of have to say, okay, well, I can't do this X, Y, or Z right now, but what can I do? And how can I build to getting to, foreshortening, or how can I build to draw an image like this if you're having trouble with this? And that's just not just for drawing, but that's for anything that you want to do. Don't be discouraged if you're not where you want to be. And then I'm just taking these outlines, and you can see probably why. For some reason these aren't coming very thick on the camera, or maybe it's just my how I see it. I gotta bend over. I have this since I started this new setup, I kind of have to bend over and see my setup kind of like in an awkward spot because this desk is right next to the desk that has my computer monitors, and there's this wall. My desk has this kind of like shelf, not this one, but the one next to me has a shelf next to it, and it kind of has this wall between me and the monitor, and I have to go back, tilt my head back, and look at it. It's not the best setup in the world, but it's a setup, and from there I'm going to see what improvements I can make. If you can't make improvements, then don't let that haunt you. Wait, be patient until you can make improvements. That's what I'm going to be doing with these videos. I'm seeing that his arm seems a little bit thick, so let me I'm just going to erase that real quick. Apologize if that's annoying for some people. I'll have to look into how to just draw something straight on. I've seen some tutorials that I've seen. They're able to draw this without going back and erasing. I think they do it like at least the people that I watch. Sometimes they do it once or twice, but it's never all the time. And I think that at least from my perspective, I might watch this video and prove myself wrong that I didn't do that much. Although, one thing is if you make statements like this, sometimes definitive statements like this, sometimes you end up eating your words. Especially when you're uploading this to the internet where millions of people can watch it. No pressure. I'm just going to make this a little bit smaller. Just like that. And then I'm going to color these in a little bit. I love to shade my stuff in, usually the darker parts near the end. So I'm probably going to do that real quick. And I'm just drawing his mouth. And yeah, detailed face. When you're drawing detail, you're going to be erasing a lot because this is when you're like really thinking, okay, I need to make this as great as possible. Whereas in the construction part of it, you're probably just you're just like making it generally roughly this is just how it's going to be. It's kind of funny because that's similar to how writing works. Like you start with a first draft and it might not be perfect, but it's just like it's a story. You're trying to get to point A and point B. And then the second draft, you look a little bit more into the detail and say, okay, so how can I make this make a little bit more sense? And what plot holes are there? and then from there you kind of just keep making drafts until you just find it as perfect as possible. Alright, so I'm just erasing this a little bit because I'm going to be drawing the eye portion of his drawing just like this. And then just like that. And, you know, this goes back to what I was talking about in the eyes tutorial, where where these lines are the skin of the eye. And then this circle, this construction circle, is the whole eye. And then that's just how I break down my eyes. Now I'm going to draw this one. Kind of comes off the page a little bit. I think that's one of the consequences of doing this landscape instead of portrait. I was thinking about doing this portrait for this tutorial, but one thing about portrait is that the how the camera's set up, it just is, it's kind of like, it's more landscape. So if I did it portrait, you'd probably see like black streaks on the left or right side of this screen. And I don't know, some people might not be too happy about that. Portrait or landscape, you know, you have the freedom to choose that sitting at home. I'm just drawing his antenna. So his antenna is really, you know, sometimes I don't feel like I don't give explanations to things when I think it's really simple. It's just kind of like a line, and then you kind of like go like this, and then I just kind of color it in and just kind of fill out that shape, kind of like that. And then we're gonna have bubbles for his eyes, just like a little circle, little oval, and then a little oval here, and then we'll have a little oval here, and a little oval here. And then I'm just going to draw, just kind of these finer details. And we can't forget about his teeth. So I'm going to draw a little, this is actually going back to construction, so I'm just going to draw a little line. This is where his teeth are going to rest on, the points of his teeth. And kind of comes around, let me see how many teeth he has. He has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 teeth. Alright, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And not be the most accurate in the world. His teeth gave me trouble. Even when I tried doing an enter to floor plus tutorial, his teeth would always give me trouble. I don't know why. It's just his front teeth just don't like me. They have something against me. Alright, and he has 3 little teeth on the bottom. 1, 2, 3, like that. They're kind of like humps. They're kind of like circular humps, kind of like this. And I'm just going to draw the outside of his mouth here. And we can't forget about his tongue. And I'll come to his tongue in a second. So his tongue kind of comes, I'm just going to be drawing the construction lines for this. So we're just going to be drawing a line up like this, down like this. Then it kind of comes up like this. And then he kind of comes like this. It's like a very sharp snake who's just having a seizure right now. There we go. And then I'm just going to erase this lightly just so that it doesn't get in the way of the detail lines. And we just follow the line like this. I'll have to practice getting my hand out of the way while I'm trying to draw on camera. I remember when I would watch tutorials and their hand would be in the way, and it would annoy me so much because I couldn't follow along. But it's kind of hard. I can't really see because I have to like look back to see my setup. I can't see immediately what the feed looks like. So I apologize if I've been doing that a lot in this tutorial. I'm just trying my best here, and I'll see. Maybe I'll look up some how-tos, or like just look up some stuff on the internet on how to make these drawing tutorials more effective for everybody. And at the end of the day, you'll all learn something a bit more as a result. So now we have the tongue. We're just going to draw the little lines in his tongue, just kind of like this. And sort of like this is sort of like there's sort of like curving because his tongue is very curvy. It's like a little worm that kind of just comes out of his mouth, if you could think of it that way. And just make it like curves. This just kind of emphasizes its shape. And it just kind of comes around like that. I'm just going to make a slight change to his tongue. You can make this change as well. Just make it a little bit narrower the more he goes farther into its mouth. I just see that as a kind of a trend in this picture. And then let me do this. I'm going to sharpen my pencil real quick because it's just I'm seeing that it's becoming more thick. That's why it's always good to have a sharpener in hand. And there you go. Pointed and sharp, so we can make less thick lines, more precise lines. Drawings need to be very delicate and care. You have to put a lot of care into them. You must trust in the heart of the drawings. That was a cheesy joke again. Sorry. I don't know why I keep making them. No, it makes me feel awful. I hope that doesn't become a running gag or anything. So just draw these little, I'm just trying to thicken these up a little bit. And now I'm just going to color things in. And I'm not sure if I want to make this portion a montage or not. You won't hear me talk. You won't hear this part if it is a montage. I have never really done a montage or like a speeded up version of this before. But if I do, get to learn something new. It'd be a lot of fun. And if you're like into sci-fi, if you like Invader Zim, you're into sci-fi and you love to draw, all great combinations. You can just look up the older cartoons if you're just trying to learn. Look up the older pictures of Zim or Gur or Dib or Gaz, and they have these kind of like boxy square. You can see the basic shapes in them very well, and I think they're a very good starting place if you want to learn how to draw. If you want to learn how to draw cartoons or anything. Another good one is probably Butch Hartman style at Very Odd Parents. Those are very simplistic too, and you could see the shapes in those as well. His characters have this kind of P shape to them. And I just noticed I messed up. I messed up on some details. This is probably not going to be a montage because I'm seeing some things that I missed. One of them is his backpack. Can't forget about that. Just going to draw that. And then we just draw like some circles here. And then a circle right here. There's his backpack. Can't forget that. I think this is what Urkins need to survive. I guess it depends on the version. Depends on the canon version. I don't think they explored it in the show, but I remember reading about it. I'm just going to color his legs in real quick. I was just checking if the recording was on. There was one time, I remember one time, like way last year, I used to have video game Let's Plays, and one time I was doing a Let's Play, and it was off the entire time, and I was not happy. That was not a good day for me. Um, I'm using OBS Studio for my recordings, and I don't know if I have the latest version, but I would really like it if I press play, the the interface turns a different color. Like maybe it turns blue or something like that. It's tinted blue, just so I know that the recording is on or off. Just that I because now I have to like scooch over and look at a button and seeing if it says start or stopped recording. And I'm just right now I'm just coloring in his mouth real quick. Shading's like my favorite part of drawing, and I don't know if that might be a bad thing because it's like the easiest part, and maybe I'm just like, oh, I'm so tired. I just drew this thing that was so complex. Let me just shade it in and make myself feel better, and I feel like drawing is effortless, and I'm just a great artist because I can color something in. And I'm just going to thicken these lines a little bit like this. And there we go, everyone's favorite Urkin Invader. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you got something out of this, or if you liked it, you can like the video. And if you want to see more videos like this, you can subscribe to the channel. I'm always looking for feedback, so please give me some comments. Tell me this is terrible. Tell me this is great. Tell me some ways I can improve. Those would be the best ones, because I definitely want to give content for everyone and make sure everyone um, has a great journey in their writing and drawing endeavors. All right, and hope you have a good day.